Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. These three characters make up what many refer to as the Trinity of the DC universe. We just got the McFarlane Wonder Woman released not too long ago, and coincidentally we have the Power Princess, which came out just a little bit before Wonder Woman, so these kind of effectively came out at the same time. That's why we're going to do a little comparison. So we're doing a Marvel versus DC, a Hasbro versus McFarlane, and so we're going to look at the packaging, we're going to look at the articulation, and we're going to look at how accurately these characters were brought to life in toy form. So stick around and we're going to get right into it. So here is our Wonder Woman. The one on the left is the Platinum Chase version. So this is the one that you have to just take a chance on and get. I got lucky. I actually ordered 3 because I wanted to get free shipping and I missed out my chance on just even getting 1 from McFarlane. So this is the main one that we're going to be looking at, which is the regular, but both boxes are exactly the same otherwise outside of the Platinum Edition sticker here. So this is a better box than what we normally get in the McFarlane DC Multiverse line. However, it's not that much better. So really the kind of main difference is that the window is a little bit different because now we have this side that says the McFarlane Collector Edition. And then really it's otherwise effectively the same. Parts of it are reflective like that, but really that's it. So it's a nice box for sure for display purposes. If you are the kind of collector that keeps it in box, and this looks really good actually, but outside of that, it's not especially special in my opinion. Here is Power Princess. This is kind of neat because this is now, we're back to our regular windowed Marvel Legends boxes. We were for a while just in the fully cardboard and paper boxes, but now we have the window packaging back. So otherwise it's very, very standard in that regard. So good and bad depending on you. If you like the windowed box and you are an in-box collector, then this is perfect. Otherwise, not especially special, but it is nice to see this return. One of the things I didn't really like about the windowless boxes is that they kind of went away from even having just a small description, which while silly, I liked having that. And you can see, of course, the rest of the figures in this wave, which I don't actually have yet. I only got Power Princess specifically for this video. So in terms of who wins in this regard, I would give it to McFarlane, but only by a little bit. I would say that having the bath pieces for the Legends one does kind of interfere with your collector window kind of look, but I don't think McFarlane has done any of the collector editions that includes a bath piece. So that's almost an unfair comparison, but there you go. Now let's open them up. All right, so here they are unboxed, and just to get it out of the way, this one retails for $29.99 and this one at $24.99. And the other big difference is that, again, this one had a bath piece in there, so we are going to see some fewer accessories. And because this has a higher price point, we're actually going to get a little bit more than the typical McFarlane DC Multiverse line normally gets. Specifically, like, we don't normally get this like card stand thing. We do have a card, but even the card's a little bit nicer than it normally is. The card has the McFarlane Collector Edition on the side instead of having the border that the cards normally have, although the back looks basically the same. And again, we do have some reflective silver on there to accentuate that it's a bit more of a special thing than the typical release. And I'm mentioning that because I want to compare not the number of accessories, because they're going to be a little bit uneven, but really the quality of what we're getting. So let's start with what the accessories are. And we're going to start with Wonder Woman herself, and we're going to look at her shield. So we have this shield. It's got some nice molding. We have our WW in the shield. The backside is really interesting because I'm so used to the Marvel Legends ones. So you can see that her arm should just fit kind of right through that, and probably just kind of sit there. So she won't be able to hold it, but I don't think she'll necessarily need to, because I think it should probably just fit in fine. And we'll go ahead and compare that to the Power Princess shield. And the Power Princess shield has a slightly more typical attachment for how it connects to the body, although this is also a little different from our typical Captain America shields that we see. And otherwise, it seems to be kind of just a, a generic type of shield. I'm not sure if this is actually a specific design that she actually uses or not. Not that it looks bad, and here's how they look. So you can see that the Legends one is obviously a little bit smaller, but not drastically smaller, even though the figures are pretty drastically different in terms of height. Here's Wonder Woman's sword, and honestly, I can't say that I know enough about Wonder Woman to know if she has a very specific sword design or not, but it is a good looking sword. For comparison's sake, here's the sword of Power Princess. So the McFarlane one does have the kind of gold paint on there, and it definitely looks much nicer as opposed to our Hasbro one, which it's not painted on, it's just colored the way it is. So the McFarlane's is definitely better in that regard. And then we have this pretty cool axe as well. And again, we do have this nice gold paint for the handle. And just to show a bit of comparison, the Platinum Edition of Wonder Woman has all the same exact accessories, except that the gold parts are yellow. So you can see like the axe is gold on here and then yellow over here. Same with the sword handle, the shield, and it's also true of the lasso. And finally, we'll look at the hands. Wonder Woman does have the left fist and a right open hand. She does come with a matching right fist as well as the left gripping hand, and additionally comes with these 2 open hands. So those are pretty nice. In contrast, our Power Princess has 2 gripping hands by default, and then the 2 hands that she comes with are a right fist and a left open hand. It's kind of a bummer that we don't have 2 fists and or 2 open hands, although I'd rather just have 2 fists, but that's what we're getting. And as far as our Wonder Woman goes, I think she looks really good. I'm really happy with this. I'm really impressed. I've been complaining for years that McFarlane needs to release a proper Wonder Woman, and I would say that we got one. Initially, when they revealed this, I didn't care too much for the face, and I think a lot of people actually complain about it too, but having it in hand, it looks so much better. I don't know how well that comes off in camera, but this is a very good looking face. It's a good mold. The paint is really well executed. I don't really see any defects at all, so a pretty good QC there. The hair has a tint of blue in there to give it some depth, and that looks good. Oh, and I do want to mention that the lasso, while in theory is really nice, really sucks because it's just a rope, and it doesn't really wind up very well. Like, you have to wind it up and try to twist it around itself to keep it in there. Otherwise, it'll just unwind. So I like the concept of it, but I kind of wish McFarlane would have included another lasso that's just like maybe plastic or something that's already wound up. That's just like for display to leave on there rather than it just being one and the same. But that's just me. Otherwise, in terms of design, to me, this is very much the classic Wonder Woman that I think a lot of people were wanting to have. I think the lines in the suit right here, while maybe not of the classic design, still looks good, and I think is probably accurate to the source material, which I think is coming from the card that's included, and still looks great. Same with the bottoms here. This is definitely the classic Wonder Woman look. Although I kind of feel like that the number of stars might be kind of a lot compared to what we see a lot of times in the comic books, but that just might be different from artist to artist kind of thing. But the backside looks really well done back here too. I do like seeing the design follow and flow towards the back like that, and that looks really nice. It's a great shade of red. I think it pops really well. It looks really nice. What's interesting is that the coloration of the knees is not, I think, like discolored because of the plastic itself. Like normally what we'll see on certain figures is that the knees are a slightly different shade, but here they actually appear to be painted. So that's actually really cool because that's actually kind of true to life with a lot of just people, with having their knees just being a little bit darker than the rest of the skin. And that's generally true of like elbows too, but McFarlane didn't do that there, but that's okay. I do like that it's there. I think if the knees were the same color as the rest of the flesh, then it would be kind of weird looking, but that's not what he did, and I think that looks great. And then our boots, again, I think are really good looking. The shoe part of the boots are a little strange. This kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. This ribbing around the foot is unusual, but I do like it. I like it because it's just different and it's neat in that regard. I do like that we don't have heels for Wonder Woman. That's a big pet peeve of mine. I don't think it makes sense for any characters, male or female, to be running around in heels. That's either a specific design choice that McFarlane did, or it's something that he's doing for accuracy. However, one of the things I really don't like is the fact that the ankle is kind of goofy looking. So this is kind of akin to the original ball joint ankles that he was doing early on, which I thought we were past at this point, because I thought we'd have something more like these ankles where it's really molded more into the body, and so it doesn't stick out nearly as much. But that's not what we have. It's really just kind of this really ugly ball joint. So that is a pretty big disappointment for me. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty standard McFarlane articulation. The nice thing though is that because Wonder Woman's outfit doesn't have a lot of like stuff like a cape or anything like that, then you should get probably more articulation than you normally might with a lot of other figures. I'm not going to go through all the articulation, but I will say that the arms aren't too obstructed by the hair either, because that can often happen with a lot of times the hair can get in the way of the articulation, and we don't really have that here, which is really nice. So it's going through, she can turn her head, still looks good, turn her head the other way, and the hair just comes around and it still looks good. So she doesn't have a whole lot of articulation to look up, but you know, being able to kind of go down and around is pretty nice. So I'm not going to knock it too hard, because honestly, I do think that this is a pretty solid job. And then we have Power Princess. So I'll do a side by side, of course, with a comic book image that I can find of her. And really overall, it's pretty standard articulation for a Marvel Legends figure, for a female figure in particular. One of the things that we often don't have is the waist articulation. We do kind of have something at the chest, and she can kind of go around like that, and she can go a little bit with a very slight ab crunch, and again a little bit back with that same ab crunch, but not a whole lot. But again, that is typical, unfortunately. But with that said, I do think the molding at the abs is really nice. I do love like the creases of the fabric of her costume there, and we see that on the backside too, and on the bottom as well. And I think that's always really cool. I love that kind of detail on figures. The boots are neat. Nothing super special about those, and as you can see that they are just kind of their own piece. You can kind of see it swivel around, not attached to the knee in any kind of way. And I do think that this face looks really good as well. I think that's really well executed. Definitely looks a lot like Wonder Woman, considering that this is basically Marvel's version of Wonder Woman, and I think that's really well done. And a similar thing with the McFarlane with the hairstyle, kind of allowing to articulate as well as not being too much in the way of our arm movement. So that's nice. Now, one of the really big things that I really like about this figure, though, that we've been seeing more and more on the Legends line female figures, are these nice arms. So not only do we have the double jointed elbows, but we actually have this nice bicep swivel, and this is better than it's ever been before. You can even see that I don't think it's because of any kind of defect. I think it's purposeful, like this vein in the bicep. And that's cool. I really like that, because she is a physically strong character, and that's really cool to see. And let's do a little bit of comparison with Wonder Woman. First, looking at the heads, and I think both are very nice in their own right. It's interesting that McFarlane's has a slight smiling smirk, but Power Princess is a very straight RBF, if you will. Now, the one big thing that I really don't like about the Wonder Woman that the Power Princess has better is that arm, that bicep. The Wonder Woman one is basically just flat, and that's really unfortunate, because to me, Wonder Woman should have some big guns the way that Power Princess does relative to the size of the body. I think that's much better executed on Power Princess. The other thing that I think is done much better on Power Princess over Wonder Woman is the skin color. I think the slightly tanned look looks much better. The Wonder Woman seems too pale. For me, Wonder Woman, you know, being a warrior, being a person that lives on an island, she should be much tanner, as opposed to this like really pale white. So I think Power Princess looks much better that way. I think if this Wonder Woman had this skin color, then this would be way, way better. So I don't have the other members of the Squadron Supreme yet. So here's a sort of Batman, because he's a rich guy in a suit. And here's our sort of Superman, because he's a really powerful dude that can fly and has a cape. So here's how they can look together. And here's how Wonder Woman might stand next to those two. And conversely, here is our DC Trinity. So here's Wonder Woman with a DC Multiverse Superman and Batman. What's interesting is that she's actually a bit taller than the both of them. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I actually don't mind her being a little bit taller than either of them, but that's how those look. And of course, here's how Power Princess would look next to them as well. So if you prefer the Power Princess look and you want to modify her to be a Wonder Woman, then here's how it would potentially look. So that's Wonder Woman and Power Princess. Overall, I would say that the Power Princess is a better executed figure. However, I would say that the Wonder Woman is a much needed and better value figure. So I want to hear what you guys think below. And if you like these types of videos, then you should check out my Marvel vs. DC Zombies video right here.